Greetings everyone, we are up with another video explaining the series of wars fought by another pair of historical rivals, this time Poland and Russia. Before we get to the video, please subscribe. Enjoy. Boswolfs' expedition to Kiev. In 1015, the Grand Prince of Kiev, Vladimir the Great, died, leaving numerous sons to compete for their father's throne. In the ensuing civil war, one of Vladimir's sons, Sviatoslav, was defeated and fled to the court of his father-in-law, Bolesław of Poland. Bolesław invaded Kievan Rus with a considerable army and crushed Yaroslav in the Battle of the River Bug. Following this battle, Polish forces occupied Kiev and seized the treasury of the Rus and took Yaroslav's sister as his concubine. Sviatopolk's reign, however, did not last long. After Bolesław returned to Poland, he was deposed and killed by Yaroslav. Despite this, Duchy of Poland not only captured the capital of Kievan Rus, but also managed to take the Chervan cities region. Yaroslav's conquest of Chervan cities. King Bolesław died in 1025 and was succeeded by his son Mishko. Mishko got into a conflict with the Holy Roman Empire with the support of Hungary. In response, Emperor Conrad formed a coalition against Mishko with Grand Prince Yaroslav of the Kievan Rus. Yaroslav's armies did not face much opposition and conquered the Chervan cities back from Poland. Galician invasion of Lublin. In 1205, the Rus Prince of Halich, Roman the Great, invaded Poland and marched on Lublin. This was surprising, as the Polish Duke Leszek the White had supported Roman's succession to Halich in 1195. However, Roman viewed Leszek as a young boy, and Poland as a weak target, riddled with internal troubles. Roman's forces advanced and besieged Lublin. However, Poland turned out to be a lot harder to crack than Roman thought. Leszek caught the Rus army unprepared and crushed it, killing Roman in the process. At the end, the Rus invasion failed. Lez campaigns against Poland. After the Mongol invasion of Russia, the Rus kingdom of Galicia had become a vassal of the Mongol Empire. King Lev of Galicia managed to acquire the support of the Mongols and launched a series of campaigns against Poland. In the 1260s, Lev, supported by Mongols, entered Polish territory, advancing all the way to Silesia. Rus and Mongol armies acquired significant loot, but failed to hold on to any territory. In 1279, he signed an alliance with Wenceslas of Bohemia and invaded Poland once again. Rus' army reached the Polish capital of Krakow in 1280, however failed to capture it, though Leo would be back in 1292 with another invasion. His armies defeated Poland and managed to capture Lublin, bringing the kingdom of Galicia-Volhynia to its zenith. The Livonian War. The next war between Poland and Russia was all the way in mid-16th century. In 1554, Russia invaded Livonia to secure access to the Baltic Sea. This war escalated into a greater conflict, as Denmark, Sweden, and Lithuania had all interests in the lands held by the Livonian Order. These lands were vital in controlling the lucrative Baltic trade. Russians initially won victories and gained ground against Denmark and Sweden. However, the tide changed in 1578 when Polish-Lithuanian King Stefan Batory joined the war against Russia. Russian forces were defeated and expelled from Livonia. Polish army advanced all the way to Pskov, where Russian Tsar Ivan the Terrible sued for peace. At the end, Russia was kicked out of Livonia and most of Livonian territory became a part of Poland. The Dimitriads. In 1569, Tsar Fyodor died, and with him, the ruling dynasty of Russia, the Rurikovits, went extinct. This led Russia into the period known as the Time of Troubles. Russia was ravaged with civil wars and a famine that started in 1601. In this chaos, a man appeared in the Polish court. This man claimed to be Prince Dmitri, the lost son of the late Tsar Ivan the Terrible, and thus the rightful heir of Russia. In 1605, he marched on Russia after securing an army and gold from Poland, and captured Moscow, becoming the Tsar. False Dmitri, as he was called by the historians, however, only reigned for 3 months. He was accused of homosexuality and being a Catholic, and was killed by the Russian boyars along with his Polish supporters in Moscow. The next year, another Dmitri appeared in Bryansk and gained the support of the peasants with promises of seizing the wealth of the boyars and distributing it to the peasants. With significant help from Polish nobles, he managed to capture several cities near Bryansk. However, false Dmitri II's success was short-lived. In 1609, King Sigismund of Poland invaded Russia. With this invasion, Polish troops in Dmitri's camp deserted him and joined their king, and Dmitri himself was killed by a Tatar. Sigismund, meanwhile, managed to capture the strategic city of Smolensk and declared his son, Vladislav, the Tsar of Russia. A Polish army occupied Moscow the following year, though the tide turned when Sigismund changed his mind and declared himself the Tsar, deposing his son. This killed the support for Vladislav among the Russian boyars, and the Polish invasion force was stranded and besieged in Moscow. It was forced to surrender to Russian forces in 1611. After this defeat, both sides were left to deal with their internal troubles. The civil war continued in Russia. Meanwhile, in Poland, the Polish council refused to support Sigismund in another campaign against Russia. In 1617, Sigismund finally got the approval of the Polish royal court and sent another army to Russia. This army also managed to advance all the way to Moscow, however this time failed to take it. At the end, although Sigismund failed to be the Tsar of Russia, he captured considerable territory, including Smolensk and Chernigov. The Smolensk War. In 1632, Polish King Sigismund died. Russia, expecting Poland to be disorganized during the elections for the new king, invaded to retake Smolensk. A Russian army of 25,000 marched and besieged Smolensk. However, the war did not go as planned for Russia. Sigismund's son, Vladislav, was swiftly elected as the king and sent an army to relieve Smolensk. The Russian army besieging the city was surrounded by the Polish relief army and surrendered. The war ended with Russia recognizing Smolensk as a part of Poland. 13 Years' War. Zaporozhian Cossacks under Bogdan Khmelnytsky rebelled in 1648. After initial success in Ukraine, Cossack advances stalled, and they started losing ground to Polish armies. In 1654, Cossacks swore an oath of allegiance to the Russian Tsar, and Russia intervened. Russian armies advanced on 3 sides, taking Smolensk, Minsk, Lvov, Lublin, and advancing all the way to Brest-Litovsk. Russian advances were reversed in 1660s, and Russians were forced back to the border in many sectors of the front. However, by this point, Polish forces were completely exhausted from long and costly wars against Sweden, Russia, Cossacks, and the Crimean Tatars. And at the end, they agreed to cede large swathes of their eastern territories to Russia, including Smolensk, Livonia, and Ukraine. War of the Polish Succession. Since late 17th century, the Polish royal elections have become increasingly problematic. In 1697, the Polish Sejm, or the Royal Council, elected Augustus II, the ruler of Saxony, as the King of Poland, with heavy interference from Austria and Russia. After Augustus's death in 1733, the Polish Sejm elected Stanisław Leszczyński. However, this election was opposed by Russia, Austria, and Prussia. These foreign powers supported Augustus's son, Augustus III. A Russian army of 40,000 crossed the border and captured Warsaw, and installed Augustus as the king, deposing Stanisław Leszczyński. This sparked a Europe-wide war between France, Spain, Russia, and Austria, known as the War of the Polish Succession. At the end, the Russian candidate won, and Augustus was confirmed as the King of Poland. War of the Bar Confederation. Russian influence after the War of the Polish Succession kept increasing in Poland. The Polish Sejm was ran by the Russians, and the kingdom itself was turned into a puppet state. This caused mass unrest in Poland, resulting in the formation of the Bar Confederation. In the fortress of Bar, several Polish nobles and clergymen started a rebellion against the Russian puppet regime in Warsaw. This war, however, ended in defeat, as Russian armies poured into Poland. The war ended with the first partition of Poland. Austrian, Russian, and Prussian troops entered Polish territory, forcing the Polish government to give up about a third of Poland. War of the Second Partition. In 1792, Polish Sejm ratified a new constitution. This constitution had terms limiting foreign influence in Poland. Russia, naturally, did not like this and declared war on Poland. Russian armies advanced from two sides, one from Ukraine and another from north. In Ukraine, Polish armies scored some military victories, however were forced to retreat due to Russian numerical superiority. Russians advanced all the way to Chelm. Meanwhile in north, Russians reached Brest. Here, the Polish king decided to sue for peace, even though the Polish armies were still intact without any major defeats, and the new front at Vistula River was highly defensible. This meant nothing though, as the king decided to surrender. After Poland's surrender, Prussia and Russia partitioned Poland, this time occupying more than half of the country. Kosciusko Uprising. After the second partition of Poland, tensions kept rising. Presence of Russian troops and series of humiliations ignited a rebellion in Poland, led by Tadeusz Kosciusko in 1794. The rebels managed to expel the Russian garrison in Warsaw. However, the rebellion was swiftly defeated by Prussian and Russian armies. After this war, Poland was partitioned between Russia and Austria for the third time and effectively ceased to exist. Napoleon's invasion of Russia. In 1707, Napoleon invaded Germany, occupying the Prussian capital in Berlin. Prussians were forced to sign the treaties of Tilsit, in which they were agreeing to leave their Polish territories to a new Polish government. Thus, Poland was once again independent, this time called the Grand Duchy of Warsaw. In 1812, relations between Russia and Napoleon soured. Napoleon declared war on Russia and invaded it with a massive army, including troops from Grand Duchy of Warsaw. Napoleon's Grand Army was initially successful and advanced deep into Russia, even taking Moscow. However, the success did not last long. French army was hit severely by the weather and lack of supplies. Eventually, Napoleon had to leave Russia with his army decimated by supply issues. This campaign brought the end of Napoleon, and thus the Grand Duchy of Warsaw. In Congress of Vienna, the winners of the Napoleonic Wars decided that Poland would be given to Russia. 1815 marked the end of Poland until the end of World War I. The Soviet-Polish War. After World War I, the Russian Empire collapsed with the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, and the German occupiers that followed Russia left Poland with the German defeat in World War I. The collapse of former great powers in Russia and Germany had led to a power vacuum. Soviets on one hand wished to expand westwards, claiming the former territory of the Russian Empire, and then expand into Germany. Meanwhile, Polish government, mainly led by Józef Pilsudski, wished to reinstate the borders of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. In 1918, Polish armies invaded the now sovereign nation of Ukraine and secured eastern Galicia, and in 1920, Pilsudski launched an offensive targeting Kiev. Poland wanted to destroy the Soviets in the field and force them to accept a peace on Polish terms. However, a Soviet counterattack pushed the Polish armies all the way to the capital in Warsaw. In Warsaw, Polish armies under Pilsudski crushed the Soviet armies and pushed them back. At the end, Poland managed to gain some territory and decisively ended the Soviet ambitions in the West. World War II. In 1939, Nazi Germany infamously invaded Poland and started World War II. The Soviet Union, wanting to capitalize on this, joined the Nazi Germany in its invasion. Germany and the Soviets overran Polish territories. Eventually, the European front of World War II ended, with Soviets occupying Eastern Europe. Poland remained as a Soviet puppet state until the collapse of the Union in 1991. This marks the end of the Russo-Polish Wars. At the end, the score is 9-6, with Russia leading. The two nations had a long history of fighting each other back and forth, though it is clear that Russia gained the upper hand in the last stretch, from 17th century onwards, completely occupying Poland for more than a century even. Thank you for watching our video. If you liked this video, please like this video. And we will see you in our next video.